Hi, I'm Julie, keeper of my home. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by, and I'd love for you to join my family of keepers by subscribing below. Today's video is in collaboration with Ann Clay from Ann Clay, The Primitive Home. Ann lives in a 250-year-old colonial home that is beautifully decorated in the primitive and farmhouse style. She does lots of tours of other farmhouses and colonial homes and lots of store tours as well. So Valentine's Day, it's coming up real quick. So how about some primitive decorations for your primitive home? I have some primitive hearts. They're so easy to make, and you probably have everything to do it in your home already. So I'm going to show you how to get a few of these done. You've got plenty of time, so you can make your home look like a primitive Valentine home. Now, today, I am going to show you how to make these hearts. I've made all the ones you see here, and I've also sent a few to Ann. I will show you the part of how to create these for your home, and Ann, over on her channel, is going to show you how to decorate with them. So we thought that would be kind of a fun thing to do. So once you've finished watching my video, head on over to Ann Clay, The Primitive Home, and subscribe. Click the notification bell so that you will be notified when she posts her part of the video. Be sure you leave her a comment and let her know that I sent you. So let's get started with what we need for today's project. You are going to need some fabric, some pins. This is just for turning. It looks like a chopstick, but it's not. It's a turning tool. The fabric is just cotton. I have some muslin. I have just a printed, kind of primitive looking fabric, and then something red that I thought was a little more Valentine looking. And I also have some kind of like a wool felt type fabric. I thought that would make a great heart as well. We have some pinking shears and some regular shears and some sponge brushes. Those I find are the best to use. And you also will need patterns. So you can use whatever size pattern you want to use. I used, this is probably 4 inches and this is probably 8 inches. But you can print them off, just Google them. You can get an image of a heart and just print it off and cut it out, and you can use that to trace. I've used mine many times, you can see. So you can use those for your hearts. And I almost forgot, you're also going to need some stuffing. Now this is just an old pillow. The zipper is broken, so I'm using the stuffing out of that because I didn't have any actually. So that works. So if you don't have any stuffing, use an old pillow. You also will need a sewing machine or needle and thread. For the grunge, this stuff is great. Can you see in the bottom all of that stuff, that gunk? That is great stuff. That's what you want to grunge up your fabric with. So you need a mason jar, some water. You're going to need some cinnamon and some instant coffee, just an inexpensive instant coffee. Don't break the bank to make this. This is some vanilla made for me by a friend, but just use a cheap vanilla.
To get started, you want to make sure that you have double fabric. You want 2 pieces of fabric laying on top of each other. Then you want to fold the bottom part of the 2 pieces of fabric over so that you're going to have 4 layers of fabric. Lay your heart pattern so that the straight edge is on the folded edge of the fabric, and you want to take your straight pins and pin that pattern down. Now you want to make sure that that straight edge of your pattern is right on your fold, and you're not going to cut that part. Can you see right there? It's just right on the fold, and we're going to cut around everything except for where the fold is. Doubling your fabric is going to save you a step. This way you can cut both pieces out all at once instead of one at a time. We all need time savers, right? I mean, I did tell you that this is going to be easy, so we don't want to make it any harder than it has to be. Now, sewing this, I am not going to be turning this one. I'm just going to leave the decorative edge so that it can be seen. I'm just creating a 1/4 inch seam allowance and just sewing around, leaving about an inch or two opening for stuffing it. If you'd rather not have the decorative edge, then just again use a 1/4 inch seam allowance and go all the way around the heart and leave an opening for turning it. This will be your turning opening and also your stuffing opening. Don't forget to leave that opening. I know I've gotten, deep in thought and just gone around, not even thinking what I was doing, and just continued to go and forgotten to do my opening, but you do want an opening. On the hearts that you are going to turn right side out, you want to make sure that you take a little snip right there at the center. Just want to snip that because that's going to help prevent it from puckering when you turn it right side out. You want to make real sure that you don't go through the seam where you've sewn, because then you're going to have to sew that all over again because you're going to have a hole. So just cut up to the seam but not through it. Now this is where your turning tool comes in really handy, because you can push out those points and those edges and get them nice and sharp. If you don't have a turning tool, don't worry about it. You don't need one. You can use your fingers. You can use the end of a paintbrush. It's all good. Now it's time to stuff them. You just want to stick the stuffing down in through the hole. And what I like to do is stuff the top 2 parts of the heart first. I like to get that filled in really, really well, and then work on the bottom and then the middle. I don't know, but it just seems to work for me. You want to make sure you stuff those points, the top 2 parts of your heart and the bottom part, stuff them really well, because it does take a lot more stuffing than you think that it would. Get it all in there as filled as you would like it, making sure that you have enough room to close the opening so that you can sew it. Now for the fun part. You will need a small needle and coordinating thread to whatever fabric you're using, and we're going to do an overhand stitch. If you don't know what that is, you can Google it, or you can try to see what I'm doing here. I know that it's probably difficult to see exactly what I'm doing, but I'm pretty much just closing up the hole with using as small a stitch as I can. So you'll see what it looks like when I finish here. But I'm just making really tiny stitches at an angle as close to the folded edge as I can get. You can see where my thread is so long it keeps getting wrapped around the bottom part of my heart. So just be careful, where your thread is going, and keep it out of the way. Mine just kept going at it over and over again. But I did finally get this done, and it did look fairly decent once I finished. There you have it. A closed up hole, and done is better than perfect. So don't worry about what it looks like. Once you grunge it up, you won't even notice. Now let me show you how we're going to make our grunge.
Okay, the measurements are 1 cup of water to 1 tablespoon of instant coffee, and then a teaspoon of cinnamon and a teaspoon of vanilla. If you don't feel that that's enough cinnamon, or you want a little more grunge, go ahead and add more. That's fine. But before adding your cinnamon or your vanilla, you want to make sure that when you put the water in, you want it hot so that it will dissolve your coffee. Okay? So you want to put 1 tablespoon of coffee in your jar, 1 cup of hot water, let that dissolve really well, stir it all up. Then add your cinnamon and add your vanilla, or nutmeg, whatever. You can add a little bit of cloves, whatever you want to add that will give you that really nice scent, because it is going to give it a nice scent.
Shake your jar really well. You'll see all that stuff on the bottom, that gook. That's good stuff. That's really good stuff. That's what's going to really make them look primitive. So I like to use a sponge brush. You can use a regular brush, it doesn't matter. I just prefer these. I just feel like I get a better coat over them. So you just want to dunk that into the coffee stain and just wipe it on your heart. Wipe it all over. Now you really want to make sure that you get right into the seams. That's the hardest part of it. You know, you just kind of want to push it down into the seam. Otherwise, it's going to show some bald spots, I guess I call them. Just rub that all over, and you can go down deep into the jar and pull up a lot of grunge as well and put that all over them. Just coat them all around. Set them on a lined pan. You can line it with parchment, you can line it with tin foil, doesn't matter. And just line them up because we're going to throw them in the oven here after we're done. I have used this grunge, I don't know, coffee stain, whatever you want to call it, grunge stain. I've used it quite a bit. I've used it on flannel, I've used it on cotton. I have not used it on any other fabrics, I don't believe. I have used it on paper, on like cardstock. It works really good on cardstock if you want to grunge something up. You just have to be careful not to apply too much of it. Sometimes putting it into a spray bottle without getting the grungy part of it, just the liquid part, so you might want to strain it. You can spray it on paper. It might make it a little bit easier, and that works really well to age it and give it that primitive look. Now, I said before, get right down into that jar and get all that grunge. That's what I'm doing here. I'm kind of wringing out the sponge. That's why I like sponge brushes so much. And just keeping the grunge on the sponge and wiping that all over the fabric. The more you put on there, the more prim it's going to get. So make it how you like it. Customize it to what your taste is. If you don't like a lot, just use the liquid part of it and just lightly coat it. You can put this on again after we've cooked it. You can add it on again and get it a little bit darker if you like. Bake these at a low temperature, like 200 degrees, and just keep your eye on them. They're done when they're dry.
Now, these hearts, you can see, you can grunge them as much as you want or as little as you want, whichever you want to do. You can embellish them as much or as little as you want. You can see this one here. I did just a little bit more embellishing with this one. I added a button, and what I did was I added a button on the back as well and pulled them together so that it kind of makes like an indent in them. So you can display it on this side or you can display it on this side. And then I just hung a tag. And again, this is just something I found off the internet. You can grunge paper with that coffee stain as well. It's just brush it on there and put it in the oven. You just want to make sure you watch it really well because you don't want to burn it. And again, you can see here how the hearts are a little grunged a little bit more. This one is actually the same fabric as this one. You can see the difference. And this one is not grunged at all. And then this is just the muslin fabric, and you can see how it has that old look. Putting it in the oven is going to give you more of that look. It's going to dry on there, and if you're laying it down on the pan, it kind of makes the little marks, which I love those. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I know I enjoyed it. I enjoy crafts. I probably have never shared this with you before, but for many years, 10 plus years, I used to teach a primitive craft class. It was something that I did for our local school system for the adult ed program, and I really enjoyed it. After doing this today, I kind of miss it. Don't forget to stop by Ann Clay, the Primitive Home, subscribe, click her notification bell so you'll know when she posts her part of the video. If this is something that you would like to see more of, let me know in the comments below. I make 2 new videos every week on simple living, homestead grown, and all things home. So join me again. Until next time.